Funny thing about being born first, folks assume you're the trailblazer, the one who gets all the attention. But in my case, I was more like a placeholder, just a warm-up act until the real star came along. My name's Alex, and I came into this world on a cold Wednesday in late November, in a town so small, even the GPS gives up trying to find it. My mom, Claire, had been hoping for a girl. She made no secret of that, not even when I was old enough to understand the disappointment in her eyes. My dad, Mark, wasn't much better. Quiet man. Worked construction, came home, drank a little too much, then parked himself in front of the TV like he was waiting for life to pass by. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it was usually to tell me I was doing something wrong. Breathing too loud, walking too soft, looking too soft. Then came Emily. She was born when I was 6. I still remember the night Mom told me she was pregnant again. She looked at me like I was a couch she regretted buying. Worn, dull, just taking up space. But the day Emily was born? Lord, you'd think the second coming had just arrived wrapped in a pink blanket. My parents lit up like a damn Christmas tree. Mom cried. Dad smiled. I hadn't seen him smile since, well, maybe never. Emily became their everything. Ballet lessons. Birthday parties with ponies. New clothes every season, even when the rest of us were stretching paychecks like taffy. I, on the other hand, got whatever was left over. Hand-me-downs, cold dinners, and blame, always plenty of that to go around. She wasn't just the favorite. She was untouchable. I could be grounded for looking at her sideways, while she could wreck the living room with finger paint and be called creative. By the time I was 10, she had already learned the art of manipulation. Emily knew how to twist a smile into a weapon. She'd cry on cue. Paint me as the villain, and my parents? They'd believe her every time. I once got grounded for a week for supposedly stealing her diary. Funny thing is, I couldn't even find the damn thing. She hadn't written a single word in it. But it got worse when I hit 13. That's when Dad started saying things like, "You're a man now. Time to act like it." I didn't know what he meant. I was still a kid, barely taller than the kitchen table. But the way he said it, like he was daring me to screw up, I knew I couldn't win. And screw up I did, at least in their eyes. I didn't make straight A's like Emily. I didn't sing in the church choir or kiss up to neighbors. I just existed, quiet, trying to survive under the same roof as people who seemed to wish I'd vanish. The day they kicked me out? 14th birthday. No cake. No gift. Just my school bag and a garbage bag full of clothes left out on the porch. Mom stood in the doorway, arms crossed, saying something about how they couldn't keep throwing good energy after bad. Emily stood behind her, smirking like she'd just won. No hug. No explanation. They didn't even wait for me to walk away. Just shut the door like they were closing off a mistake. That night, I slept behind the gas station near the edge of town, under a busted awning that leaked when it rained. I had $37 in my pocket and a notebook I used to write in when the world got too loud. I scribbled one sentence that night, shaky, barely legible through the tears I refused to admit were there. They'll regret this. Didn't know how, didn't know when. But I knew it in my bones. And that's where it all began. You learn quick when the world doesn't care if you eat. First night on the street, I learned how cold pavement really gets. Second night, I learned folks look right through you if you're not useful to them. By the end of that first week, I learned to stop looking people in the eye. That's how you survive, by shrinking, blending in, making sure no one sees you bleed. I found an alley behind a laundromat that didn't smell too bad and had a busted dryer I could sleep behind when it rained. I'd dig through trash cans behind diners, pick out fries and burger bits folks left behind. Wasn't proud, but pride doesn't fill your stomach. Hunger does the talking when your ribs start showing. School was a thing of the past. Cops caught me trying to sneak into the library a few times. Not even stealing, just trying to get warm and read a book or two. They'd cuff me, drop me off at some youth shelter, but I never stayed. Those places? Too crowded, too loud, and too many broken kids trying to break each other just to feel something. I learned how to keep moving. Stay invisible. Keep your head down, your back to the wall. Now, somewhere along the way, I met a guy named Pete. Old-timer, lived in a rusted-out van by the old train yard. Smelled like gasoline and cough syrup, but he had a way of talking that stuck with you. Took one look at me, tossed me a half-eaten sandwich, and said, "World don't owe you nothing, kid. But that don't mean you gotta be nothing either." Pete didn't sugarcoat life, but he taught me some things, how to spot folks who meant harm, how to trade scrap metal for a few bucks, how to stay alive without losing the last bits of your soul. He had a beat-up laptop he'd charge at the bus station and let me use when he wasn't watching conspiracy videos. That laptop was my window out. At 15, I started learning everything I could. Coding, business articles, how to build websites, stuff nobody cared to teach me when I was just the screw-up son. I'd spend nights at the bus station Wi-Fi, reading forums, watching tutorials with one eye open for the security guard. And slowly, I started selling little websites, cheap, 5-page things for pawn shops, food trucks, tattoo parlors. $50 here, 75 there. But it added up. I wasn't begging anymore. I was building something. Every time I made a sale, I wrote it down in that same notebook. The one I had when they tossed me out. First line still read, "They'll regret this." The rest? It was starting to look like a blueprint for something bigger. By 17, I had a little prepaid phone, a used laptop that actually worked, and a name for myself on some online freelance boards. Folks didn't know how old I was. Didn't matter. My work spoke for itself. And let me tell you something. Success tastes different when you've had to fight rats for a sandwich. Now, about that family of mine. I didn't hear from them. Not once. No calls. No apologies. Emily was winning science fairs and starring in school plays. I'd see her face on the town's Facebook page sometimes, like a reminder. Mom would gush in the comments. Dad, he'd just nod in the photos like he was proud of raising a golden child. Me? I wasn't even a ghost in their world. I was less than that. But I kept building. I started saving everything I earned, buying used parts, building custom computers, and flipping them. Then came the drop shipping hustle. Ran 3 fake storefronts out of a shared workspace I paid for in cash. I learned to automate, scale, advertise on the cheap. And when I turned 18, I got my first business license. One kid, one laptop, one name they'd forgotten. But they were going to remember it soon enough. Because I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was rising. I'll never forget the day I hit my first 5-figure month. I was 19, renting a dusty one-room studio above a bait shop. Place smelled like old shrimp and bad decisions. But it was mine. I had a mattress on the floor, a folding table for a desk, and 6 fans to keep my overheating computers alive. Looked like a hacker's closet, sounded like a wind tunnel, and I loved every inch of it. Back then, I was juggling 5 things at once. Building e-commerce sites for local shops, running affiliate ad funnels, doing tech support for folks in Australia, because they paid well and didn't ask too many questions. I worked like a man on fire, 18-hour days fueled by instant noodles, bad coffee, and spite. That month, I cleared just over $12,000. I stared at the screen for an hour, just watching that bank balance like it might vanish if I blinked. And that was the moment it clicked. I wasn't poor anymore. Wasn't a stray dog scrounging around in alleys. I was a man with a skill, a plan, and a damn backbone. Now, I didn't get flashy. No cars, no chains, no loud nonsense. I reinvested every dollar. Started an LLC. Got myself a lawyer, a real accountant, folks who knew the ropes. Hell, I even dressed like a grown-up once or twice. By 21, I had 3 employees. Freelancers at first, folks like me who just needed a shot. I built out a little web development agency called Stoke and Ember, figured it sounded classy enough to land clients with money, but still gritty enough to remind me where I came from. In business, it boomed. Turns out, the world is full of companies who want a sleek website, and even more who don't understand how digital marketing works. I made them look good online, made their phones ring, took a cut of the profits when I could, scaled up without getting bloated. By 24, I had an office downtown. Not a fancy one. 4th floor of a creaky building that smelled like history, but it had my name on the lease. That meant something. One day I was sitting in that office, looking out the window at the city I used to sleep under, sipping actual coffee, not gas station motor oil, and I thought to myself, I made it out. And I had. At least, mostly. But here's the thing about ghosts. They don't stay buried forever. Especially not the ones wearing your last name. That summer, out of the blue, I got a message on LinkedIn. Sender? Claire Dawson, my mother. Now I hadn't heard from her in 15 years. Not a call, not a birthday card, nothing. She wrote, Alex, I hope this is you. Your sister showed me your company page. We're proud of what you've built. Would love to catch up sometime. Maybe dinner. Proud. That word nearly made me spit my coffee. Suddenly, I was worth remembering. I didn't respond. Not right away. Instead, I clicked on her profile. Saw a photo of her and Emily, arms around each other, smiling like life had been one big picnic. Emily had grown into a pretty young woman. Same smug look, though. Like she was always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Looked like she was in real estate, flashing fake smiles in front of overpriced condos. I stared at that picture a long while. Then I closed my laptop and went for a walk. Old instincts told me this wasn't about pride. It was about proximity to power. The kid they threw away had turned into someone. And now they wanted back in. But the thing is, they weren't going to walk through that door. Not unless I opened it. And I wasn't ready to decide. Not yet. A week passed after that message from my mother. I didn't reply, just left her sitting in that unread purgatory. But ignoring ghosts doesn't make M go away. It just makes M sneakier. The next one to crawl out of the past was Emily. She found me through Instagram. My personal account had maybe 12 posts, mostly skyline shots, the occasional whiskey glass, never anything too revealing. But I'd used the same handle since I was a teenager, back when I was too broke to afford my own name online. She sent me a DM. Hey big bro. Long time no talk. I'm in town for a conference. Saw your office downtown. Would love to catch up. I almost didn't reply. I should have known better. But curiosity? That's a hell of a drug when someone's been living rent-free in your mind for years. So I sent back one word. Why? She answered within minutes. Because we're family, Alex. And because I owe you an apology. Apology. Now that was new. I stared at that message for a long time before finally replying with a time and a place. Not a restaurant too public. Not my office too personal. I picked an old coffee shop 2 blocks from a bus depot, one I used to sit outside as a kid when I was pretending to wait for someone who cared. She arrived wearing heels, a designer coat, and sunglasses like she thought someone might recognize her. Still had that movie star smile, but up close, I could see it, the cracks. The confidence wasn't as thick as she wanted me to think. We sat. We ordered. She did the talking. Alex, she started, you have no idea how many times I've wanted to reach out. I didn't say a word. Just raised an eyebrow and sipped my coffee. She kept going, like she'd practiced the speech in front of a mirror. I was young. I didn't understand how badly you were treated. Mom and Dad, they weren't fair to you. And I was too selfish to see it. But I see it now. I leaned forward. And, I'm sorry. I stared at her for a beat, then said, that's nice. Now tell me what you want. She flinched. People like Emily? They expect their words to fix things. A clean little apology, a hug, maybe a crying selfie on Instagram about healing old wounds. But I wasn't playing that game. She sighed, looked out the window, then gave up the act. Dad's sick, she said. Heart problems. Might need surgery. I didn't blink. Didn't care. And I asked. And money's tight, she admitted. Mom had to quit work. My real estate gigs dried up last year. The market's brutal. We were hoping, you could help. There it was. The wolf under the sheep's wool. I leaned back and crossed my arms. You remember the night I got kicked out? Her mouth twisted. Alex. You were standing behind Mom, grinning. Thought it was funny. I was a kid. Yeah. And so was I. We sat in silence. Then I reached into my coat pocket and slid something across the table, a folded photo I carried for years. Me, at 14. Standing in front of that house with my garbage bag of clothes. You could see her in the background, peeking out from behind the curtains, laughing. She looked at it. Didn't touch it. I'm not angry, I told her. I'm not bitter. But I'm not a fool either. You didn't come to apologize. You came because your lives are falling apart, and I'm the only one left standing. She looked me in the eye for the first time then, and what I saw there wasn't shame, it was calculation. I'm offering peace, she said. A second chance. I finished my coffee, stood up, and looked down at her. I gave you one when we were kids. You cashed it in the day you watched them throw me out. Then I walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't have to. Because I knew right then, this wasn't over. They weren't done trying. But neither was I. After that meeting with Emily, I didn't hear from her for 2 weeks. Not a peep from my mother either. No calls, no messages, not even one of those vague thinking of you Facebook posts people toss out when they're trying to soften the ground. But I knew better than to think they'd given up. People like that don't stop when you say no. They just get quieter and sneakier. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, I got an email. Not from them, from a client. Or so I thought. Big retail startup. Supposedly wanted a site overhaul and a full digital marketing package. Claimed they had a decent budget. Their branding was clean, their pitch tight, even had a domain that checked out. But something felt off. Can't tell you what tipped me. Maybe it was the way the founder's name didn't come up in any business records. Maybe it was the weird phrasing in the emails, like they were using a thesaurus to sound smarter. So I ran a few quiet checks. The company didn't exist. The references were fake. The team photos were lifted off a stock image site I'd used myself a few years back. It was bait. A setup. Someone trying to walk me into a trap. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who sees conspiracy in every shadow, but this one stunk of desperation. So I dug deeper. Turns out, the domain they used was purchased 2 days after I met Emily. And the purchaser? Some shell account tied to a small marketing firm. A marketing firm run by a guy named Bryce Turner, Emily's ex. I'll be honest. When I saw his name, I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. They thought they were going to scam me, or frame me, or tank my reputation with a phony project and a few well-timed, disgruntled client posts online. And if I'd been the wide-eyed teenager they tossed out years ago, it might have worked. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I was a businessman, and I was done playing defense. So I did what I do best. I built something. I started with a trail of digital breadcrumbs, documenting every phony interaction, IP address, purchase record, and fake testimonial. I saved screenshots, set up trackers, and let them dig their own little grave in my inbox. Then I reached out to a buddy of mine, runs a cybersecurity firm. Used to be deep in the trenches back in the day, white hat hacker turned consultant. I paid him under the table to run a full digital trace. Took him 3 days. By the end of it, I had everything. Text messages between Emily and Bryce, emails drafted by my mother under a burner Gmail account, even a shared document outlining their exposure plan, which included phrases like break him down in public and force emotional leverage. They weren't just trying to beg for help. They were trying to destroy me. And for what? Revenge? Spite? Jealousy? Didn't matter. Because now, I had them. Dead to rights. And I decided, no more backing down. It was time for payback. Not loud. Not violent. But deliberate. Sharp. Unforgettable. The kind of revenge that doesn't just sting, it lingers. And it starts with an invitation. There's a certain satisfaction in setting a trap and watching it snap shut. But see, revenge, real revenge, ain't just about making M hurt. It's about making M see what they did. See what they lost. See that the thing they tossed aside now sits on a throne they'll never reach. So I sent the invitation. An actual, honest-to-God letter. Cream-colored envelope, thick paper, no return address. One for Emily. One for my mother. Even one for O.L. Mark, my father, if you want to use the term real loose. Inside, it just said, you're invited to a private dinner. Friday, 7 p.m. Venue, Ember House, 6th floor, 914, Ash Street. Dress sharp. There will be photographers. Now, Ember House was my new office. Just finished renovations, marble floors, big glass windows, an open kitchen, and a view that could shame a postcard. The kind of place you don't just work in. You own in. That Friday, I set the stage. Catered meal from a 5-star chef, jazz playing low, dim lights, crystal glasses, all of it. I wanted this to feel like success. Like everything they never thought I'd have. They arrived separately. First was Emily, heels clicking like she was trying to be heard before she was seen. She wore red. Of course she did. Always liked attention. Then Claire, my mother, in a suit too expensive for someone struggling financially. And finally, Mark. Same dead eyes. Same sunken shoulders. If he had any shame about the past, he kept it tucked behind his cheap aftershave. They came in expecting a peace offering. What they got was a presentation. I didn't let them eat. Not yet. I had him sit down, right there at the polished walnut table, and I dimmed the lights. Then I rolled out the screen. And I showed them. First slide, a photo of me, age 14, sleeping behind that laundromat. Second, the fake company they built, the fake emails, the burner phone my buddy traced right back to my mother's account. Emily shifted. Claire's face tightened. I clicked through each slide, not rushing. Letting it simmer. Bryce's messages. The dummy accounts. The bank transfers. All of it. By the time I was done, you could have heard a pin drop. Even the jazz had faded into silence. Then I leaned in and said, "Come a Sunday morning. You tried to ruin me. But here's the problem. I'm not the kid you left on the porch." Claire opened her mouth. Probably to lie. So I raised my hand. Let me finish. And then I laid down the real hammer. I bought out the agency Bryce works for. Quietly. Entire share block. As of Monday, he's terminated for costs. Emily blinked. Wait. You. I nodded. And those burner accounts you set up? Already forwarded to a legal team that's prepping a fraud suit. The kind that'll make headlines. Claire stood up. Alex, please. Sit down. She sat. And then I told them the best part. I'm not pressing charges. Yet. I want something else. Silence. I want you to walk out of here. All of you. And I want you to know, the only reason you're not in handcuffs is because I chose mercy. Alex. No. You don't get to speak here. You had years to talk. Now? You get to listen. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out over the city. You left me with nothing. You watched me starve. You threw me away because I didn't fit your picture. But I built this. I bled for it. And I own it. I turned back to face them. You thought you could shame me back into silence. Now I own the game board. And you're not even players. They left. All of them. Not a word spoken. Not a plate touched. Just echoes in a room that once belonged to a ghost. Now see, I didn't make a scene for the sake of spectacle. I didn't film the dinner. Didn't scream it, or post some dramatic video online. That's not how you win the long game. But I did let the right people know what happened. My industry's small. People talk. And when a rising business owner gets targeted by a fraudulent campaign, especially one involving his own family, folks pay attention. It started with a tweet. A business coach I'd worked with once posted. Imagine getting kicked out at 14, then growing up to own the company your family tried to destroy. Respect to the real ones out there building from rock bottom. Didn't name me. Didn't have to. The right folks knew. Then came the podcast interviews. A friend invited me on to talk about resilience and building from nothing. I didn't say a single name. Just told my story, a boy cast out, a business built on grit, and a reminder that some people only come back when they smell money. That episode went viral. And the calls started pouring in. Clients, press, other kids who'd grown up on the outside looking in. Suddenly, I wasn't just some anonymous tech guy anymore. I was that guy who survived and thrived. Meanwhile, Claire, Mark, and Emily? They weren't used to the world not buying their version of things. Emily posted something passive-aggressive online, of course. One of those, not everything you hear is true, some people rewrite history to play the victim types. Got a few sympathy likes from her real estate pals. Didn't help her much, though. Bryce was out of a job. Her firm lost 2 big listings once word got around that she'd tried to sabotage a client. Reputation's a funny thing. Takes years to build, minutes to torch. Mom tried to do damage control in her own way. She called me, left a long, rambling voicemail about how she only wanted to reconnect and how she never meant for things to get so out of hand. She even used the phrase, "We were just desperate." And Mark? He didn't say a word. Not one. Which, honestly, felt fitting. Man was a statue when I was a boy. Why would he find his spine now? But I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. Thing is, success had filled the hole they left behind. I'd built my own family, the folks at my office, the clients who believed in me, the barista who gave me a free coffee the morning after the podcast hit big. That was my circle now. And them? They were just background noise. But I wasn't done yet. Because the past ain't something you just outrun. You rebuild over it. So I did something symbolic. I went back to that old house. Yep, the same one they kicked me out of. It was for sale. Had been sitting on the market for months. Old, tired, roof sagging a little. The kind of place no bank wanted to touch. So I paid in cash. Didn't even flinch. Neighbors must have thought I was out of my mind. But when I stepped inside and stood in that hallway, the one I'd been shoved through as a teenager, something clicked. This wasn't revenge. This was closure. I stripped that place down to the studs. Gutted it. Rebuilt it room by room. New floors. Fresh walls. Took out the window where Emily used to smirk down at me from her perfect little kingdom. And when it was done, I donated it. Turned it into a halfway house for runaway teens. The sign out front? Stoke House, a new start. That name, it wasn't for them. It was for every kid who'd ever been told they weren't enough. After Stoke House opened, something shifted inside me. I'd spent so long chasing success with gritted teeth and clenched fists, thinking I'd feel peace when I beat the people who left me in the dirt. But truth is, peace don't come from revenge. It comes from replacing what was lost. I used to be a guy with a chip on his shoulder. Now I was the guy giving other kids a chance I never had. And it caught on fast. Stoke House got attention, news pieces, local interviews, even a grant from a youth outreach nonprofit. I didn't ask for the spotlight, but when it came, I used it. More people started reaching out. Not just kids, grown men and women who'd been chewed up and spit out by their own blood. I started a mentorship program for young adults trying to break into tech, funded it myself, no strings. Called it Second Sons. That name hit deep, because it wasn't just me anymore. There were dozens of us. Kids who were overlooked, underestimated, written off, now turning into engineers, marketers, coders, business owners. It was a movement. Meanwhile, the old guard, my family, kept slipping. Emily's real estate career, crumbling. The broker who'd backed her quietly cut ties after my side of the story got out. Her name had become internet shorthand for entitled sibling energy. Mark's health issues got worse. I heard through a cousin he couldn't afford the surgery. Claire tried launching a GoFundMe, didn't even raise $1,000. People weren't buying her, we fell on hard times act. Some recognized her from that podcast story. Guess truth has a way of sticking to folks, even when they try to wash it off. And me? I just kept building. Hired 10 more employees. Expanded into app development. Bought a second office space across town. And I never forgot where I came from. Hell, I kept that old photo, me at 14, bag in hand, right on my office wall. Not as some sad reminder, but as proof. Proof that a man ain't what he was handed. He's what he builds. But you want to hear something wild? The letter came on a Tuesday. Plain envelope. No return address. Inside was a card. Simple white, gold trim. And in the middle, we're sorry. Please forgive us. No name. No contact. Just that. I sat with it for a long time. Not because it hurt. Because it didn't. That's when I knew they didn't own me anymore. They couldn't. Not my story, not my scars, not my future. So I tossed the card in the trash. Didn't burn it. Didn't frame it. Just let it go. Because you can't change what's behind you. But you can damn sure change what's ahead. It was a gray Tuesday when she showed up. Claire. My mother. Not a call. Not a message. Just her, standing in the lobby of my office building, holding a purse that probably cost more than the car I used to sleep in behind. My receptionist buzzed me. There's a woman downstairs. Says she's your mother. Should I? I paused. Could have told her to send Claire packing. Could have walked out the back and pretended I had meetings all day. But something told me to face it. Not out of curiosity. Not out of kindness. But to finish it. I told her to send her up. She walked into my office slow, like she didn't know what part of the floor might give way under her. Same face. Same tired eyes. But older now. Worn. I didn't offer her a seat. She sat anyway. Alex, she started soft. You're not here for forgiveness, I said. She looked down at her hands. No rings. Nails chipped. That purse, though, still clinging to old status. No, she said after a long pause. I'm not. I thought maybe we could talk. I leaned back. Waited. I lost everything, she went on. The house. The car. Emily's struggling, and Mark. Well, he can't even get out of bed half the time. I didn't blink. And now that I've seen everything you've done, the business, the foundation, the success, I just needed to see it for myself. Needed to see you. I let the silence stretch until it got real uncomfortable. You kicked me out at 14, I finally said. And not once, did you check if I was dead or breathing. Her mouth opened, closed again, like she wanted to defend it, but couldn't figure out how. I stood up, walked to the window, looked down at the street. The same one I used to walk barefoot in winter just to find a warm vent to sleep by. You came here to ask for something, I said. So ask it. Her voice cracked. I need help. I turned around. There it is. She tried to explain, not with words, but with that look. The one parents give when they think biology buys them a second chance. But blood don't buy grace. Actions do. And hers? They overdrew the account a long time ago. You know what I think? I said. I think you came here hoping I'd be the same boy you kicked to the curb. Hoping I'd still be desperate for a scrap of love. But I'm not that boy. I buried him. Right alongside the version of you I used to wish would come save me. Her face tightened. So that's it? You won't help your own mother? I walked over to my desk. Pulled out a checkbook. Wrote a number, one that would cover a roof over her head and some dignity for a while. Tore it off. Placed it in front of her. This is the last thing I'll ever give you, I said. Not out of love. out of closure. She stared at it. Didn't take it right away. Pride and desperation doing their little dance. But in the end, desperation won. She folded it slowly, tucked it into her bag, and stood. "You're not the same boy," she said, looking me in the eye for the first time since she walked in. "No," I replied. "I'm the man you made when you left me in the cold." She left without another word. And me? I sat back down, poured myself a drink, and stared out the window. Not sad. Not angry. Just done. I turned 29 on a quiet Sunday. No parties. No cameras. No noise. Just a coffee, a clean desk, and the kind of stillness a man only finds after walking through hell barefoot and coming out the other side with his soul intact. Funny thing, for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to prove anything. Not to the world. Not to them. Not even to myself. The business was thriving. 2 offices. Clients across 3 continents. My staff? Loyal as family. The real kind. The kind that sticks around when the money runs dry and the lights go out. Stokehouse had expanded too. Took over a 2nd building last fall. More beds. More kids. Every one of them reminded me of a younger me, wide-eyed, carrying more pain than belongings. We fed him, trained him, taught him to build, not beg. Some of them even worked for me now. Full circle. And as for the ghosts, they'd gone quiet. Emily dropped off the map. Moved cities, last I heard. Selling condos in Florida or faking influencer life in Dubai. I stopped checking. Claire never reached out again after that last visit. I heard she used the check to move in with a cousin downstate. Mark, well, he passed away in the winter. Heart gave out. I didn't go to the funeral. Didn't send flowers. Didn't mourn. Some might call that cold. But when a man spends his life watching you drown with his arms folded, you don't owe him a tear when the tide takes him. I'd already buried what little love I had for him a long time ago. All I had left was honesty. And I gave that to myself. That's the part most folks miss about healing. It don't look like a sunrise. It looks like you, sitting in your chair, knowing you survived people who never wanted you to. It's quiet. And proud. And earned. Now, every so often, I still open that old notebook. The one I carried when I had no bed. No future. Just a single sentence written in a shaky hand. They'll regret this. I used to read it like a threat. Now, it reads like a prophecy fulfilled. They do regret it. And I don't need to watch it happen. I just need to keep living. And that's exactly what I'm doing. At 29, I own everything they said I'd never have: peace, purpose, power. But more than that, I own myself. Not a son defined by rejection. Not a man fueled by revenge. Just someone who climbed out of the fire and decided to build a home out of the ashes. The final word? Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them sit in the life they chose. Me? I'm already gone.